Right, here we are. I'm gonna take a moment just to pull up the comments so I can see people that are live. But if you're watching the replay, I just want to welcome you in. I'm excited to have TyEl Heals with me here, and we're going to talk about light language, soul voice, light linguistics, frequency, resonance, and all kinds of magic. So while I'm just pulling up the group so I can see what people are saying, Ty, want to say hi?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm honored to be here in this space and chatting openly about the idea of light linguistics, light languages, soul expression. For those that are not familiar with me, which you probably aren't, I go by TyEl, which is essentially just my designation that I've given to my collective version of me, my higher selves embodied and expressed in the physical. I could be considered what people might refer to as a quantum architect, which is just a fancy set of words that essentially means I specialize in working with energetic structures. So essentially, sacred geometry, like most of us that work with light languages are familiar with, because that's the code that gets expressed in these living light languages. So I'm honored to be here and chatting about these ideas. This is my passion, and I'm honored to be invited into this space, Kacie. So thank you so much.
Mm. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to let everybody know this is really the first time that we've met. I have been following Ty on TikTok for probably a year now, and I've always really enjoyed the clearings and healings and activations that he does. And I was just told by spirit to invite him on to have a conversation to continue speaking about resonance, which we've been talking about for the last 3, 4 weeks, and how resonance and frequency are really something we can consciously work with to clear things out, clear out density, activate soul remembrance, and also create. So it just is now my habit to listen to those soul nudges, to make connections, to say yes. And sometimes it works out into meeting people that have a passion for similar things. So I'm really grateful that you could make the time. And people in my world are really used to me speaking about light language, not so much in and of itself and for its own nature, but I always use it as the quickest vehicle to tap people into their divine channel and their divine flow and activate their soul voice so that they can do whatever it is that they came here to do. And I would love to hear, maybe for the breadth of it, what your favorite things about light language are, what you really like to do with it. But let's back up even one step further and go, anyone that might be watching this that is like, what is light language? How do you define it?
Sure, sure. Light language can be defined in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways that I like to express it is that it is a soul expression. It's a form of higher self integration in a lot of ways. So it's connecting with your direct stream of you. And it supplements essentially anything that you intend. A lot of times when people are expressing light language in the beginning, they're going to be expressing a lot of that soul expression, and they may not understand it totally. They may not get it, and they want to understand it. They want to put it into boxes. They want to analyze it like they would perhaps something like English. But the way that I perceive it is more like an unstructured language that affects energetic structures. And of course, I usually refer to it as light linguistics, because the term language has a lot of baggage with it, right? Because then we want to break it down like we would English or other earthly languages. And it's not quite there. It can be taken in that way, but it's more processed in that right hemisphere of the brain rather than the left hemisphere, right? The left hemisphere is that analytical side, the side that needs to understand things, that wants to put things in boxes, needs to know that this means this. That right hemisphere is that more intuitive side. It's that flow state side, the side that knows, it recognizes patterns, and it actually processes data exponentially faster than that left hemisphere of the brain. But really, light language is meant to be felt, right? It's more meant to be felt in the heart and through the body. It's more intuitive. But yeah, so like I use a lot for any kind of intentions. A lot of times we will have our light languages start to show themselves when we start to do more and more energy work, or when we start to do healing work and dive more into our spiritual practices. It can just happen spontaneously, or it can get triggered by individuals like ourselves who are expressing it, because it's like it's an activation, right? It's activated, not necessarily something that you learn to do. You can learn to understand it, but it's something that comes up a bit more naturally. And to me, a lot of times the idea of like an activation is a remembrance. So sometimes when we hear somebody expressing light language, we'll be like, oh, wait, what is that? Like, I know that. Or maybe people will have a very visceral emotional reaction to it, and feel like, cry. Why am I crying? Why am I feeling emotional when I hear this? It's because that soul remembrance, right? They recognize it. And sometimes, especially when we activate each other, there's usually some deeper connection that we've had in many different experiences, incarnations. We know each other outside of the physical. We're just playing this big movie together and playing roles for each other. But yeah, so that's, I mean, in general, that's the way that I kind of perceive it. I mean, it can be, I think that what I think is so amazing about light language is that it's so powerful in the way that my higher selves tell me. They just describe it to me and articulate to me. Is like, we have no idea how powerful it is yet. Like, there's a lot of aspects to it that the human just doesn't get, because we're still trying to put it in boxes. We still want it to mean certain things. And I forgot to mention as well, is that it's not just expressed vocally, of course. So that's why we refer to it as linguistics, is because it can be a form of expression in a number of ways. So one of the main ways that I do it is through the movement of my body, through, the mudras for one, but just every aspect of your body is kind of like a different button and, joystick on a controller from your higher consciousness. So every little movement matters, every little muscle, where your eyes are looking, even the tongue. I'm using my legs a lot of times, or even my toes, to play essentially a symphony of frequency, because it's like each is like a little different instrument. So you can play those. It also gets written out. As I have your graphic in the background, I see that there's some light codes on it and some glyphs and stuff, and there's so many different ways of it comes out: dancing, vocalizations, singing, and also just beautiful artwork that gets expressed as well. I hope I got that. I mean, I could go on forever.
It's one of my favorite topics as well. So I love what you said, the symphony of frequency. And that's one of my favorite things. And just to expand upon what you said, because I love everyone's different definition, because it's always the same, but we're sharing it in a different word because of our frame of reference, because of who we are, which is mirroring how light language is expressed and experienced. And I always call it a multidimensional communication art form.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it is like all kinds of different arts, visual arts, spoken arts, dancing, right? Like the painting behind me, which has energy, it has emotion, it has this whole package of information, but it's going to be received a little bit differently by the perceiver. And I find a lot of light language has that, where someone will receive it and they will unpack the electromagnetic whole package of codes, the information of the thoughts and the feelings, through their own lens, through their own expression and experience. So you'll receive something a little bit different than what other people receive, especially if it's soul voice. And I tend to play with more of that highest self, multidimensional soul expression, and teach people to unlock that, because I think it's so powerful. And then I've got friends that are way more into bringing through different collectives, Pleiadian light language and Arcturian light language, things like that, where there can be a little bit more fun with that more direct translation and things like that. So there's so many different expressions of it that it really is an art form as well as a science blended together. And I think the power of that is actually taking both hemispheres of the brain together, and that's part of what it gets to do.
That's beautiful. Yes. Well, chef's kiss. Because I love to express it in that way too. Very similar to that. I usually compare it to music more than like language. It's meant to be felt. And, you don't have to know what a song was written about to feel the vibe, the emotion in a song. right?
Mhm.
And even if it had lyrics, people may interpret those lyrics dramatically different between each other, and that's what's so powerful about light linguistics, is that it's meant to be taken through the filters of the individual. And that's what makes it so very powerful, and why we can do something, like in the work that I do. I could be working on, working with a huge group of people, and each person is going to receive something different. Somebody's leg might, their knee might feel better. Another person might have an activation come through. And that's why we call it, quantum expression. That's why we're working in the quantum field of potential. And that translates through for each person a little differently, even if it's a transmission that's designed for one person. A lot of times I'll make transmissions, and they'll play it. They're meant to play it again and again, and they're going to receive something different every time that they play it. So yes, thank you for touching on that, because it's so true. And it is art form. It's meant to be played, I feel. We call it energy work, and I always correct myself or do my best to, because it's best to be played. It's a playful act, because that's how our soul really gets down, is through that play. And I think we want to over complicate things, and we want to put those things in boxes. But if we allow our inner child to really play with it, especially if it's new, if you're wanting your light languages to come out more, I always recommend people play, make up lyrics, quote unquote, make up lyrics to your favorite songs with your light languages. Because it's the thing is, it's like people are afraid they're going to make it up, right? Or am I making it up? And you can't really make anything up. That's what's crazy about this stuff, especially once you're activated. You're going to feel it. It's going to be different. It's a flow. If it's not coming out smoothly, that's where it's okay. Well, that's not quite there yet, but it's like creating that flow so that you can drop through the data into that stream of flow, so that it comes out. If you don't get the flow going, then there's nothing to drop your little messages in, or the data to flow downstream in. So
Mm.
allowing yourselves to play, and the flow to come out. That's why dance is so helpful with light language, and singing, and just any of those art forms. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that.
Oh, this is my jam. It's the divine flow and the reconnecting of that channel that we have innately as kids with source, with our highest self, all of that. And, like traumas and dramas and programs and human life can really cut us off from that energy. So I know both of us sound like we've had experiences for our light language being activated just kind of by remembering. And I'd love to hear your story about that in a moment. But that's how it came through for me. I just saw someone do it one time and I was like, oh, I I remember how to do that. But I do have a lot of people that come to me going, I need help with this. And I have found that I actually have a toolkit to help people with the unblocking of the divine flow and then remembering how to do it on their own. But it's really just a question of going from feeling closed off to source, to spirit, to that higher connection, and opening it up so the energy that already is flowing can actually be felt.
I love that. That's perfect. I'm so glad that you're offering that, because that's a beautiful service, is, helping people to recognize that they're not separate from it. It's already in you. It's just allowing yourself to get in that flow state and allowing it to come through, because it's already there. It's nothing special. I don't think that people think it's something special that we do. It's just part of, I like to say that's part of who we are. It's not necessarily something that you do. It's just a piece of what you are.
But that restoration of our innate gifts and our innate flow sometimes takes a bit of work because we have so much life that has happened to us. And some of it might not even be ours. It can be ancestral wounding or collective wounding that's come through. And so typically in that remembering process, it's like getting out of the head, getting into the heart, and making it fun is a huge piece. And then sometimes we need to do some belief repatterning around certain things that can come up, like can't, or it's too weird, or I'm gonna get, like burned to death because they're pulling that, witch wounding kind of thing. People are gonna
Right.
reject me, people aren't gonna understand me. I need to play it safe, I need to play it small. Like it can bring up a lot for people to feel comfortable enough and safe enough to actually tap into that flow. So
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It can bring up a lot. This, even as you start to express it, a lot of times it'll come with a lot of emotions, because it's moving a lot of those distortions, those discordant frequencies out. So a lot of, when I first had mine activated or started using it rather, it came with a lot of emotion. I would be crying all the time. I didn't quite understand it, but it was moving these blockages out, and these limiting programs and these belief systems that just can't hold on, just can't grip on anymore, and just allowing that to flow out.
Mm. It will show you or illuminate all of the stuff that's ready to move. And before we dive into anything else, I'm really feeling like it would be lovely to actually just, for especially people that haven't felt or heard or received your particular style of light linguistics, do a little bit of a demonstration activation if you're open to it.
Always open to it. Absolutely. Okay, perfect. So what I'll go ahead and just set the intention for is just to have it be whatever anybody that's listening to it needs it to be. So again, this touches on the multidimensionality of this type of expression and how it can be taken through the filters of each person. So what I'll do is I'll also give you the opportunity to set an intention for yourself. This is something that I recommend a lot of times, is set an intention before you receive. I always recommend to set up certain parameters before you receive anything from anyone, only what's in alignment for your highest good, of course. So I also set parameters before I do it. So I'm just going to speak those aloud. So I'm just going to ask everyone's highest selves to step in. Then I'll ask any guides and aspects that are relevant for whatever needs to come through for each person today for the highest good only to step up. And then I'm going to set the intention that during this transmission and after the transmission, no harm will be done. No energy will be taken that is not freely given out of love. It will be in alignment for the highest good of all only. And only those that are open to receive will receive, and only what's meant for them. And then just what I recommend is feel your body. Relax, maybe relax your eyes, relax your jaw, allow yourself to sink into your seat, and then just become conscious of how your body feels, because that's listening, and listening is feeling is healing. So just feel into it, and who knows what can come through. So yes. Sandre tu ataha naria karkaska imburdi barana kulturgi. Sit artisi siannan tu urto da mahar kataka yekerekiski arritamiana. Cirut artisi simbur da mana tatati yukurkaski anianan turnamaturi. Burduran tu althara nithira tarsu artanamatu. Cit urhi siambu haranana kurka kaeru kutari parensa. Ci usifa saranan turutkaski harimayaku. Terye Tuhan saranamurnanan katsurdia. Puri fahar yasanin tartugus kuriti proyefetar nanturi. Curuturan taratahatatata ikikeskerna. Tire uri tamantaran nukatkus di ati karai murhi banana kutar ketebraki banji prubudi rakai kanata. Cikuti atata ati iti ata miku akalakat engara kek ekalelak narama yotuya. Ce ata de tafi kamba anturo. Puru sahasari tiserre tiane mokur kanana kurkia piani. Cirusa firete asa. Nemu hatani na hete, jete hatadi ti purandudi. Kurta tata sifra sivra mundar na katata perki pui. Ti prosfiare te tiam murando rokota tata antendi kantar katati pos por koto rot kuni marka dive te ginen tipu. Ni marka de ngate dive ke ti pur pring ni betu kedinga te luci berkana ke berapa. Gue pernah pengen di atur tapi mengkosa yarta si presi syahrafa cibro kenantara si prosia terkenai ya chata tata tambire ke ahi teresa resuru sombur mantan tukratari Thoro, Naharata, Thuro, Nomburna, Maharati, Kansu, Shibro Sambed, the Timra Sara, Declaria Tarkaskakia, Murtam, Ranun, Anti Nasiri, Turiata, Runu Faha Maranana, out Arkaska, Iteriti, Fefia Murtana, Peterafeke, Piparati, Berkutir, Bucci, Maxi, Berkuti, Churgu, Hemarda, Profi, Hartakadima, Satartik, and Multidimensional. Por de morada para ver a gente que para que te veja se o a frase para esse para esse para que te precisa para que te para que tu considera que tem já já tu livro que te para te a tu tu que não para o ter que para que não livro que não tu muran Katut ekaret kaskare protemana to bere katartai. Jurdo da imurga na tachi ji proso fasar shmurta ba bere ke featuga ekrakata iklayendur ya klayro kotar chepesi. Jukula rata tatami kurko karu tartatesi. Jeti si tarda fasura. Ta farra ta fasura. Mero tambure ne kasari. Te surra tatara nimura katari kedesiari. Mustashatas. Te profaharchatasa, te bratalana, ke kroskiarata, kristalata kanundurkesketiama, paru krukaretarkeskiretema, te pa, te she asapa, te bratandere koskraetis, ya protat. Jesus tatasiam braturania, satu katiamra, shetakaya, rutortamana, ichiakaya, ichiakaya, ikwa imura, imura, and there we are.
I'll just take a moment to let that land. I was gonna say that was better than coffee, electrolyte, coconut water, smoothies. I felt a invigoration in my spirit. So thank you so much. I would love if you're watching this either live or on the replay, doesn't matter when you are. Can you just share with us what you experienced through that? And if it was nothing, that's perfectly fine. But most of you are very energetically sensitive. I will share that I was enveloped in the same kind of bubble of divine love and divine flow that I, experience when I'm doing energy work. But receiving the codes from you, it was just so fun, uplifting. I felt a lot of energy like reconnect around me, which was like this piece that I think my energy field had been missing for a little while. So first off, thank you for that. It was this beautiful like remembering of quite a bit. And I know that I'm going to be unpacking these activations and soul remembrances for a while because I was feeling a few of them like this is for later, this is for later. You'll understand this later.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that's how it comes through a lot of times too. And I'll mention that to others, especially if I'm in a session, is that this stuff comes in packages, especially the way that I express it is it's like packages of data. And honestly, even with the way that I do it, it's like connecting to a server, like going on to giving you a login to a website where you have a whole list of different zip folders that you can download. Oh, I need that. Okay, some confidence. Oh, I need some clearing on my root. Okay, I need some, and they can download those, and then those will be integrated over time. So just keep in mind that if you are open to receive today this transmission, that it can come through and in an integration process for you. So just keep that in mind that you had this transmission that came through over the next days and weeks. Everybody responds differently depending on what they were receiving. So, there can be sometimes emotions can come with that. Just be sure to drink lots of water. I know it just seems like a short little thing that you're like, oh, this is good, whatever. But just keep in mind, it can bring things up. I've had people never be introduced to light language before until they saw a short transmission in a live or on one of the videos, and their stuff gets all activated, and it can come through hot and heavy really quick. So just be prepared. It's all in alignment for your highest good. And if you ever have any questions, reach out to us. And we're happy to share our perspectives and to support you in whatever is coming through for you at this time.
You're getting a lot of hearts and people sharing that there was a lot of energy. Aaron said, a lightening of my vessel, celebration of removing of different blocks. And I'm sure more people are going to share their experiences, but I know sometimes people, when they receive those, they're just like, I can't type right now. I can't share what that was.
Right. Or it can take a bit for the ego to like the ego structure to process it as well. Sometimes people are it's a kind of a shock to the system. You know, I use light linguistics as a tool to supplement in all the energy work that I do, or really anything that I do, because it's going to supplement anything, not only just all the woo, quote unquote, woo woo stuff that I say playfully. It affects everything that we do. Even when I'm using my hands in this way, I'm tuning my instrument, my body, my fields to help calibrate so things can come through easier. But that also happens in anything that I'm doing in my day. When I go shoot hoops and play basketball, I'm also doing it too to help adjust things and clear things out. Or out at, you know, when I go out and dance, you know, I do it too. I just let it all out. But yeah.
I love that. I also love that you also consider them those packages of information that I sometimes can be unpacked right away. Sometimes they are for later. Some people can interpret the data and some people can't. Some packages, I believe, also aren't really meant to be interpreted. Some are fully just for feeling and receiving. And some, as you amplify your discernment, your intuition, and your capacity to unpack and understand the codes, will be like a whole transmission that you can like translate and be like, oh, I know exactly what this means. Do you find the same thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So for a lot of us, we're especially those that express light linguistics, light languages, we're a lot of times key holders. So we hold certain keys and certain codes that we are here to essentially give back to people or to deliver to people so that they can start to unlock things for themselves. And, you know, just like a modem on your internet at home, you can't translate the coding, the information without that modem from your wall. You know, you got your cable that you got, but it's not, you can't plug your cable into, you know, your computer. It's got to go through a way to translate that data so that your device can interpret it. And then a lot of times that's what's taking place is we're recalibrating you know, your software, your software of your being. Sometimes it's a hardware. Sometimes we need to adjust certain things in the physical body so that you can interpret that data. And a lot of times, especially with the way that I do my work, my play, is that it comes through as you know, very multidimensional information frequencies that you just can't translate into the human yet. Because that's really how I perceive energy and these things anyway, is through pure frequency. So when people a lot of times want to get like a reading or get that kind of extra information, that they want the human to really understand what's coming through. And I'm always encouraged just to let that go, like to let the stories go, because we really hold ourselves back a lot of times with these stories and wanting it to fit in boxes. But yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. This is exactly what I speak to people about. I oftentimes will be like, don't even worry about the interpretation right now. That comes later. Your intuition gets automatically turned on, I think, to a higher degree as your own light language also, especially when you're speaking it yourself and you're receiving it and you're practicing it. And it just tunes everything in. So eventually it all starts to make sense because we are fine tuning our own frequency back to our own soul energy. And I find that it's such a great gateway for people to start to trust themselves, which I think is the most important part of intuitive work. You probably agree, right? So when you
Yes.
start to trust yourself enough to flow, you'll trust your intuition enough to go, I actually do know what that feels like. I actually do know, because it's the mind and those programs going like, no, 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 you're making that up, that are hindering you from fully owning what you actually already feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And like the way, like the main way that I interface with spirit, if you will, is through claircognizance and clairsentience. So I'm a knower and a feeler. And to know, have your claircognizance beyond really intensely is a tough one, because especially if you're a very logical person, like I was very logic driven. So to have that be like my main clear, it doesn't make sense sometimes, because you know, there you just get information, and then you doubt yourself. Over time though, as you use it and you play with it, you really start to build that confidence, and you start to understand a little bit better about how it all works, where we are channels, right? So we are open channels. And once we get to that point where we've cleared out enough to be open channels and be clear channels, pretty much we're always in a channeling state. It's either we're channeling, oftentimes we're going to be channeling from distorted programs if we're not yet cleared out. So these limiting or negative belief systems, we can't do this. Oh, I need this to be this way. But then once you're a clear, open channel, you start to recognize you don't really make stuff up unless you're intending to make stuff up. You'll get this information and be like, okay, well, I got this information. I'm just going to say it anyway. And as you do that and you work with it, write things out, ask questions to yourself, you'll get those answers. And then you'll learn to validate those answers over time and be able to back that up with your experiences and other perspectives. So yeah, that's why I truly believe we're all open channels, but it's just depending on where we're channeling from. I mean, we're usually, as we're doing this work more and more, we're going to be channeling from our higher consciousness. And that's there to support us, because that's why I call this higher self integrations, because it's just more of that bigger version of you becoming more of the game character in the game, right? So if we're playing Sims, there's more of them playing in through us, and it becomes those barriers between what we would identify as our higher consciousness starts to fade as we integrate more of that and have more access to our own code and who we truly are.
I agree. And I do want to highlight, though, one of the ways that I interpret it is sometimes we can close off the channel if our nervous system is completely activated and we put our shields up. Although that's almost more like that's when the distortion happens in fight or flight, when we're like, shields up, red alert. And so it's trying to come in, but it's going to come in distorted ways, and you're not going to trust it, or it's going to be refracted in strange ways, or it's coming from sources that aren't you. So it does feel like an attack because it's not you. But then if you're in that freeze or shutdown state, then you can almost completely feel cut off from that source energy. And it's not that you actually are, but it's that you have put up these shields because you don't feel safe enough to reconnect. And I always find that the nervous system and its regulation is one of the most important pieces for people to be able to receive and actually do light language too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the nervous system is something it's really special, right? It's that it's the piece that connects everything else. And as our nervous systems are healed and they're able to hold more light, we just become walking healers, just for ourselves and for anybody else in our vicinity. And a lot of us, we have a lot of distortions, a lot of stuff going on in our nervous system, and so we do shut things off, and those fears, those fight or flights, those limiting programs that come from experiences we've had growing up, or that we've adopted through other people's belief systems, what our parents tell us is right or wrong, or religion, or society. And so we put up these barriers to ourselves, these limiting programs that say, oh no, this isn't, I'm not, I can't do it this way, or I'm not good enough in this way. And then we put that up and we block ourselves from who we truly are. And then we're just more in that ego structure state, that set of programs that we identify as this physical body, this limited little being in this game. But when we're so much more. So yeah, absolutely great point. When we're in our truth, in our flow state, then we're channeling from this more open state. But otherwise, we're going to be channeling from those limiting programs, that are stuck here with us, and those are often negative thought forms that limit us.
Yeah. And I find a lot of people that outright, reject light language, tend to be fearful of it and what it might be. So that can automatically distort the data that's coming through. So I'm curious about maybe what you've experienced as someone who is very public in sharing these activations with people that are like, oh, you are Satan himself or something.
Right.
Do you get a lot of pushback or haters on the internet?
Yes and no. So I had been expressing light language for quite some time, just privately, because it got activated. I'll just tell a little story initially with me. So I was totally involved with all sorts of healing modalities. I was going to every kind of group healing that I could go to, Reiki circles, anything that I could to try things out and to be around others who were doing this work. And I of course, so in these settings, in these containers, I had been introduced to light languages. And at that time, just, I don't know if it's just the timing of where I was at. I understood that how it worked in general. Like I knew it was a thing, but I still, my ego structure still had a lot of resistance to it. So I don't know if it was just their particular way of expressing it, because there was a lot of like, they really were wanting it to be their thing. And so I was like, oh, okay, no, that's great. That's your thing. You do that, you know, I'll figure out what my thing is. And I was like, I put up a big barrier to it. So I was like, nope, anytime I heard it, I was like, nope, that's not for me. That's somebody else's thing. And then, of course, the universe has a sense of humor. So down the road, it all got, one night, it all got squeezed out of me. Like, so like my body got contorted so hard, it was squeezing out until I started making just like those, you know, archetypal sounds that then evolved into a different dialect and another dialect every few seconds. It was a completely different dialect, and it sounded, you know, all sorts of stuff, singing and tones, and would sound like different alien language and other like earthly languages, all sorts of stuff. So I had never seen anything like that at that time. Like I'd never heard anybody go through that many or whatever. I was like, am I possessed? What's going on? Like, because it was so visceral. And I hadn't heard anything like that before. And so then I really kind of like kept it to myself and really wanted to understand it before I felt comfortable expressing it more. So, I mean, and after that had happened, it was just coming out all the time. So it was just expressing itself. I couldn't really control it. I mean, I could and I couldn't. It was just so, I was so opened up to it at that time that it was just, anytime that anybody would enter my energy field, I would like jolt and I'd start coding and making light language sounds. So I kind of like reclused for a little bit. I kind of kept to myself, went even deeper into my hermit phase because it was just, it was so intense. So I had a lot of those programs, those, you know, those fears for myself, those worries. I was worried about other people's projections, what they might perceive it to be. And then over time, of course, as I used it more and more, I started to recognize what it truly is. And a lot of that fear went away, but I still didn't want to, I wasn't ready to go out and share it with the world yet. But, you know, spirit eventually pushed me out the door and pushed me onto like TikTok. And I was like, all right, well, they dance, you know, I didn't know what TikTok was really. I was like, oh, I know that people dance on it. And that was my favorite way to let out the movements, the mudras of, you know, light languages. So I felt that was good because I can just put on some music and just let it flow out. And I was expecting a lot of people to be really resistant to it, like I was, right? So I expected those kind of barriers. So I was ready for it. I was ready. I knew the rebuttals. I knew how it works. So I was happy to explain it and, you know, all that stuff. And then what I found is that there was almost no negative reaction to it. As very, very few people actually had a negative response to it. People that were new to it still even were really open to it. They, you know, because their soul recognizes it, that it's true, it's universal. They don't understand it, of course, but for the most part, people are really open to it. But yeah, there's people who don't get it. There's people that, you know, are going to project on, you know, you're channeling demons, especially the way that I do mine, because my eyes turn white, you know, and which is, I didn't even know until I was on TikTok that my eyes did that. I was like, oh crap. Okay. So now I'm even weirder, you know, like not only am I doing all this stuff, but now my eyes turn white. So, you know, there's people who have religious programming that think certain things, or people that have limiting programs in certain ways that will project that onto you. But really it's not that common, not as common as I thought it would be. And of course, I have to do it all the time. So I don't really have a choice. There's not a real disconnect from my body and my spirit like a lot of people are. So even if I'm doing anything like yoga, I can't really do yoga like other people do because I have to allow my body to do what it wants to do, or it's, you know, I'm just going to experience a lot of pain and tension in my nervous system. But yeah, like it's, you know, and so as I do this in public, I expected people to be resistant to it. You know, I thought, you know, people are going to say stuff or whatever, and they don't even care. People are so in their own world that they don't even look at you. Like I expect, you know, I travel through airports and I'm letting it out because I have to. So I'm like clearing stuff and doing whatnot, and nobody even looks. So I just put in some earbuds and then I can just make the sounds too. And people just think I'm a foreigner. I don't know. People don't even care. They don't look. Or even even a little bit at the, you know, if I go out to a club or something, I like to go out and dance and I let it out, you know, because I'm there to code and clear and set up structures and all sorts of stuff. And every once in a while, people are like, what is this guy doing? But they're just thinking, oh, it's just a really interesting dancer. You know, it's just doing this interesting dances. So people are more open to it than I think than we really expect. And I think that's going to just continue to expand. Like I saw a video last night from a movie that it was on TikTok, but they showed a bunch of clips from a movie, The Kid Who Would Become King, and they do some coding, like Merlin in it does all these like hand mudras and stuff, and to make magic, of course. And people in the comments were really open to it. There's thousands of comments, and people are like, "What is this? What is it?" Or it's in the AO, the movie, the AO, or the show, the AO, which
Oh,
I
wait.
haven't. Oh wait, see, I haven't seen.
Yeah.
So, but they do the similar thing, right? So they're doing this
They
stuff,
do.
and Naruto.
Dr. Strange also, I feel like, gave us a little.
Exactly. Yeah. So people are going to be more receptive to it. It's coming out more, I think a lot of times that's mainstream media or mainstream culture channeling without recognizing it, because they're channeling through a lot of these truths. And so people see it, especially in these ideas of magic, right? Because it's part of that magic, those spirit fingers, speaking spells, because that's how I perceive it as well. It's a form of speaking spell, but through pure code, which is just that much more powerful.
Yeah, bypassing the mind with all of its baggage is so powerful. So I completely agree. And I've had a similar experience of there's a couple people that are like, you need Jesus. There's a couple people that are like, oh, that's gibberish. But for the most part, I find people will either be neutral and be like, it's just not for me, and they don't get up in the face about it. And then there's the people that are actually magnetized in. So when I do light language, it's very much my soul voice, and it's typically experienced as a frequency of home, divine love, remembering for people that are my people. And they're just like, who are you and what are you doing and how can I work with you and tell me more? They're just drawn into it. And the other ones that aren't are like, repelled by it. So it creates this magnetism for the people that are going to resonate with you.
I was waiting for that word. I was like waiting for the resonance word to be thrown
Right?
in. Absolutely. Yeah, people are going to resonate or they're going to be repelled for sure. It's physics in a lot of ways. It's going to push away certain frequencies that aren't right for you and magnetize those that are right for you. Absolutely.
Mhm. And I find that hearing someone speak light language will give me such a clearer understanding of who they are as a person, and it'll like automatically sort them energetically. I don't have to go through the mental projections or like anything. I know who they are. I know if I do resonate or if there's a dissonance there. I can feel also if there's distortions. And it's just such a fascinating way of letting it be the clairsentience, to go back to what we were saying earlier, as opposed to the mental projections and the ego.
Yes.
We can
Yeah.
feel it.
Yes. Yeah. That's what's so great about it is you don't have to overanalyze it. You just feel, there's the data is there. There's so much more data that's being expressed than the human has any idea.
Right.
I've experienced that through, plant medicines in certain situations of being able to actually see it, see what the code looks like and hear what it sounds like and multidimensionally. And it's not the same at all. There's so much data to it. It's incredible. All of the information that's exchanged when we use these tools.
I love seeing it. I also was like you, where it was claircognizance for a very long time and some clairsentience, but I didn't always trust the clairsentience as much because we're told to trust our mind as opposed to our intuition, our gut, our body sometimes. Um, but now everything's turned on to the point that it tends to be like a synesthesia of all of it, seeing it, feeling it, hearing it, knowing it. It's all just blended together into the capacity to unpack those packages in their fullness, which can be a little confusing at first, right? When I first started to, but now my brain is better at sorting out or pulling out the pieces, but it's all very coherent. And I think that's part of my favorite thing is that it creates this coherency in our field, and we stop having the separation the same way. Since you're feeling it, you're knowing it, you're thinking it, you're experiencing it in that multidimensional way.
Yeah, more holistically.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely love that, and I think part of my mission is the restoration of the divine human template. Light language is
Yeah.
a small part of that, but it's removing all of the separation that we've been experiencing for millennia and coming back into that holistic experience of all of us working together, right, in harmony. And I mean internally, but also, externally, we can have that reflected in the world once people have that internal harmony, that flow, like all of it works together, right? And I think we've spent so much time in separation that people are really yearning for that reconnection now.
Yep, I absolutely agree.
It is so powerful. I'm really curious to the audience here, if because we have beautiful 7 people watching. Any questions while we have Ty here? Do you have? I'm looking down to my phone. I if you're wondering where I'm where I'm at, I'm just reading all the beautiful comments. But if you do have questions, drop them in. Before we finish up, I would love to have you drop your link into the comments, or I can do that for you. And I would love for people to actually, if they resonate with you, like follow you on the places where you show up the most. So I know you're on TikTok. Do you show up on Instagram, anywhere else that they should be
Yeah,
looking?
I do a little bit on, Instagram, not as much as Spirit is encouraging me to. Instagram is a lot of pictures, is how I recognized it initially. So, and I'm such a, I don't want to say ADHD like symptoms, but I bounce around from thing to thing really quickly. I like to say I have an attention span of a toddler, so that's a little bit more accurate. Yeah, so I definitely use TikTok the most. It just has really good reach, and it just works really well for the way that I do things. So I do live streams on TikTok. I post transmissions and videos there. I do have a Facebook as well, so it's a little bit different, but I do use that as well. And if people are interested in finding out more or getting in contact with me, the easiest way to do that is my URL, which is ty-el.com. So TyEl, so TyEl is hyphenated. And you can also find me through, the Linktree links and whatnot on these different social media platforms. But on most of the platforms, I'm TyEl Heals, TyElHeals. But yeah, you shouldn't have too much of a trouble finding us through, whatever way you find me. I'm honored to connect in that way.
I just I dropped the link. I didn't think I spelled it. I missed some slashes when I was doing it into the comments on my phone, because apparently I can't listen and type at the same time. That's just
I relate.
there's the odd day where I can, but today.
I very much relate to that. Yeah, this has been amazing. I mean, I love your perspectives that you're sharing, and I think that's what's so beautiful about light linguistics and light languages, is that like we all have our own unique perspectives on how it works through our own lens of reality, and that's just more credence to the way that it is, because we all are so different, but there's this universal expression that we all can tap into, and looking at it through our own lens makes it even that much more powerful as well. So yeah, thank you so much for having this space where you're discussing this, and it sounds like you've got a great group of beautiful souls that are interested in it and then working with you, and lucky enough to work with you and play with you rather. So yeah, I keep trying to catch myself, but
A little work. I think the work sets us up so that we can play.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to reprogram myself here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, there's just those attachments, and being in this collective space it's beautiful. So thank you so much.
Hey, I for the last probably decade have had been an entrepreneur, and I've had jobs that are so much fun that I've reprogrammed that word work. I'm like, yeah, yay, I get to work. Like I love my work so much. I was a professional hula hooper and teaching artist, flow artist for 7 or 8 years before I moved into online work. And that flow is something that I was helping people cultivate in their movement, in their dance. And then when I came online, I was like, oh, light language is the same kind of thing through a medium that doesn't require people getting out a hula hoop, basically. So it's been so fun to see all the parallels.
Yes. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's funny, as we look back, we'll recognize, wait, I was kind of doing this stuff the whole time. That's what a lot of times when people see light language, they'll be like, wait, I was doing that when I was a kid. But I look back at my careers, and I totally see how I was playing things out. I was a designer. I worked in marketing. advertising, that kind of idea, web development. I did all sorts, anything creative. So, branding, which is, making logos and using colors to express subconscious ideas. And that's all just like modern day magic. Logos are like, modern day sigils. They like represent these energies that you give birth to an identity that's not quote unquote, not even real, right? You give these brands some kind of personality. And I look back and I was like, oh, wow, I was doing magic. I was either doing pixel magic, I was making graphics, you make these colors and different geometric shapes. But yeah, looking back at it, it's very interesting how it plays out. And I've always a very flow state person as well, even in the work that I did in that way.
Totally, because it is just that art and science blended together, the full embodied expression of creation. I think we're all creator beings, fractals of the infinite creation that came here to express in our own unique ways. So there's just such an infinite number of ways we can do that. And I always
Yeah,
said my hula hoop was my magic wand that just so happened to be a circle.
I love that. I love that. That is perfect. The hula, I need to play with hula hoop some more, because that is magic. Like, I've tried to do it, and the people that play with it, it's so hypnotizing to watch people. And did you do the spinning it around the arms and all that?
All kinds of things.
Oh,
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 15 years, so I can like on any part of my body and dance with it as well. But the thing that also really always struck me, and I got this because I was a gymnast and a trampoline gymnast, and I did a lot of things like that where I would get into flow state, but you need to drill and practice and set up the muscle memory for it to feel effortless and to get into flow state. Same thing with being able to be in flow state when you're driving, even when you're walking, right? I'm sure a toddler isn't in flow state when they're walking, but we can do that now. And so I feel like light language is one of those unique things where it actually doesn't take practice really to get into flow state. It's just a dropping in. So it's a really fun, very accessible thing. Whereas with hula hoops, to find flow state or poi or any circus art or anything, you have to drill and practice for a long time.
Yeah. I played sports, and you get that muscle memory and that flow state. That's one thing I noticed too. A lot of people who are just really like light languages and stuff is really easy to flow out. A lot of times people are very physical. They've been, athletes and those kind of ideas. And that's what I see like as the main clair for a lot of athletes is clairsentience, claircognizance. They know, they just get that muscle memory, and they just get in that flow state. And that's where the magic is accessible. So yeah, it's very much, you don't have to try, because the trying actually gets in the way. Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I always say it's the easiest thing, like people think it's how do I do it? How do I get it to? And it's like so easy. It's like the easiest thing. Like I can be doing 20 different things because I don't have to do anything. It just moves me. You set the intention and you let it rip.
Yeah. And that is the thing though. It's the blockage is our belief system that we can't. It's not innately how we would be expressed. Same thing with dancing, right? Everybody can dance, but the people that are like, I can't dance, it's just a program that they've
Yeah.
put in. And it's the same thing of if you've ever felt like you're being danced by the music, you are
Yeah.
just being inhabited by it. I find that energy, it's equates to light language. So when I saw somebody do it, maybe about 2019, 2018, I just was like, oh, I can do that. And I didn't have any preconceived notions. And I just activated it and I just started speaking it. And the thing for me was that it felt different than just gibberish, which it could be, because of the energy that it felt. Like it felt exactly the same as when I meditate or do energy work or when I dance in that flow state. So I think that's the thing that we really get to highlight, is that it is completely an experience of resonance in the body. It's unmistakable once you get there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's that 100%. Yeah, you feel it. You feel the difference, especially if you're expressing it. Like when I'm doing my transmissions, though I'm not making conscious choices what dialects to come through. My vocal cords are being squeezed to make a certain sound. Some of them some of the vocalizations that want to come out are so difficult to even translate into the human. I'm like, I can't do that one. Like I can't, and it'll come out sounding like way different than what it's trying to, just because of the energy that's pressing into my physical body. So yeah, you feel like at a certain point as well, like with me, there was no questioning it, not at all, that what was taking place wasn't me making, just making up some kind of gibberish. It was so visceral and so physical with me that, I have no doubts, but I know with everybody, it's a little bit different. But you feel the difference. It's the difference between, like, what are they like freestyling, it's like that sounds right. If it doesn't rhyme, it doesn't sound good in a freestyle. Like, so the way that you get that flow into it, you just know it's very similar to that, to the sound. What sounds good. You don't have to be told what sounds good, what kind of music sounds good. If it's discordant, then you're just going to feel it in your being. So yeah, that's a great point.
I also find sometimes that it doesn't come out in a way that sounds harmonious to the ear, because there can be this need for a little bit of dissonance to break things apart.
Yes.
I don't know if you find that too, but it doesn't always have to sound good or pretty.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes that's the whole point, is to break things up. Yeah. So some of the different dialects that come through are meant to really create some kind of break apart some of the frequency of what's needing to come out. 100%. Yeah. A lot of vocalizations that I'll do aren't, that don't sound like a language. It'll just sound like weird sounds or crunches or, pops and ticks and tats and weird, all sorts of different things. And a lot of time, over time, I've had to, I've learned what those kind of mean and do. Initially, I'd be like, I don't know what that's all about. But as you go in over time and you set certain intentions and you see what comes through, you start to realize, oh, okay, that's to break things up. Oh, that's to build structures. Oh, that's to, speak love into it. Some of the dialects are very much more like, feminine. Some are more masculine. And sometimes there's a little bit of like a battle that happens as it's trying to come out to balance those. Because sometimes with me, those masculine aspects really want to power themselves out and really they're like, nah, yeah, it's our turn, let's get in there. And like, nah, man, you gotta chill out a little bit here, you'll get your turn, just like allow it to flow. But yeah, for sure.
I get the ones that are really for clearing or like really piercing activations are usually tones that I just have to like hold, and it's like it doesn't even translate very well on Zoom, because Zoom will be like,
yep.
Can't hear it, but it'll still go across the airwaves with the same intention. Yeah, I absolutely adore that. And you do get that sense, that innate sense of like, is this coming through in that masculine way? Like when I feel that difference very clearly. A lot of what I do is that feminine, divine love, holding energy, but then sometimes it'll drop down and it's so masculine in its structure, in its holding. And it's so funny because I was a very sci-fi kind of person, and I'll be like, "Oh, this has definitely got Klingon energy."
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the Klingon.
The Klingon divine, like Klingon, it's not even the dialect, but the energetic essence. And I'm like, who was channeling that through when they were pulling that for Star Trek?
Yeah, for real. No, so much of it. Like when I watch movies and stuff, I'm like, they either know or they're just an open channel, right? They're just a full-on open channel, or they know about this stuff, because it's crazy.
Yeah, and that job that people, there's a couple people that get to make up like new languages for TV shows and movies, and be curious to know if they play with light language as well.
Oh, right. Yeah, totally. Like some of the Elvish, or even, it's interesting, that point, because I watched the new Avatar movie, and in the Avatar movie, there was a song towards the end that was a full activation. I don't know if they meant to, but it, like, I was having a visceral reaction where I was crying, and I could feel it in my body, and I knew there was a full-on activation in that song. And it's very similar to a lot of light languages that come through. So yeah, I've noticed that as well.
Heavily encoded pieces are coming through. I don't know if you've got kids and you might have missed this, but Frozen 2, light codes galore.
Ooh, I'll have to watch it again with that awareness. No kids though. No
Yeah.
babies for me yet.
You're allowed to watch it even if you don't
Oh
have
yeah, I'm a kid. I'm
babies.
enough of a kid. That's the whole point. Like I'm for it.
Right. It's wonderful to see it coming into the collective. So it's just been so much fun to explore more of this resonance with you. I really appreciate your time and our conversation and just always getting to see, work that you do, but from like different angles is so much fun to see different reflections of how it's just coming through and out into the world. So thank you so much. And if anyone is just hopping on now into the live, you're going to need to go back and watch the replay so you can receive the really beautiful, powerful activation that Ty shared with us. And is there anything that you want to share just in closing? Anything that wants to come through?
I just want to just express more appreciation to be invited into this container, and so much appreciation for you to help as you're helping others to remember more of who they are and embody that in the ways that you do with just an open heart, and in bridging that science and the spirituality in the way that you do, and just being you is just so amazing. And yeah, I just wanted to encourage everybody else just to recognize that you being you is enough, right? There's nothing else that we really have to do. There's not some kind of formula that we have to play out. You don't have to have your light languages activated. It's not some kind of special badge to wear. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen when it's appropriate for you, and there's no rush whatsoever. Just being you is absolutely 100% enough, and it's your superpower. It truly is. Just you being you is your own unique signature song, and it's perfect and beautiful. So sometimes it's about getting out the noise from our energy field, from our songs, so we can hear our own music. It's kind of like listening to a whisper at a death metal concert sometimes. So as we do this healing work, and we shift out what we're not, so we can hear our own music, and that music is beautiful. So just being you, remember that there's no pressure, and we're all doing our best. It's a process. I'm doing my best every day, and we just keep evolving into more of who we truly are. Thank you.
So beautifully said. All of that. I agree. And I have one thing to add. If you're waiting for your light language to be activated and you're feeling a little bit impatient, I did develop a process that I've walked thousands of people through now, just to help you remember. And it's just about going through exercises that I have to remove the blocks so that you can remember and tap into that divine flow. So that is just my 3 secrets to unlocking your light language so you can speak from the soul masterclass. I put it up for like $11. It's a 90-minute or 2-hour class. And I think we have basically 100% success rate because we make it. I worked for a long time with kids, and I pulled a lot of those games into it so that people would be like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Beautiful. I'll definitely have to check that out and give it a shout, because that's amazing. So thank
Oh,
you.
well, it was my pleasure because like, I remembered just instantly, but I also was like, oh, sometimes we need a bit of help remembering. And yeah, we can support each other so much. But the codes that came through in this conversation were next level. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, follow Ty on all the socials on TikTok if you're open to that platform. It's a lot of fun. I know people are like Facebook or TikTok, and I'm like, and also let's play.
Yeah,
Connect.
play. Yes, yeah, that's
Exactly.
okay.
And you know what, just finally, if you've got 1 sec, you do one-on-one sessions as well?
I do. Yep. I do offer one-on-ones. Essentially what I specialize in is helping with higher self-embodiment. So, I mean, that looks different for each person, of course. So a lot of times that's focused on the idea of clearing and healing, aligning, upgrading energetic systems. But it also includes the idea of activations. So a lot of times people come to me and they get their light languages activated, or other gifts, their clairs heightened, all sorts of things. And then of course, upgrades too. So that's kind of what I specialize in, is upgrades. So a lot of people already are aware of a lot of this stuff, and you can always have more bells and whistles on your goodies, right? You can always make your gift stronger. People that have the most, amazing spiritual sight that they thought they were tapped out will come, and we get them upgraded, and they're like, okay, I didn't know that I could see like that too. So there's always more that we can add on, and that's kind of my specialty, is helping people to flex whatever they got a little bit more, but just it's simple, helping people remember more of who they are and embody that in the physical as much as possible.
I love that. You can check that out on his link that we dropped in as well. Check those out. It's so perfect. I understand why Spirit was like, you guys should talk, because this is work that I do as well, and it's for people's luminous evolution. So same. There's always more to explore in this infinite game. Thank you so much, Ty. Thank you everyone to watch. We will see you probably next week. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about, but it'll be magical. Have a beautiful rest of your day, friends. And please remember to leave questions, comments, all of that for us, because we'll take a look and see if there's anything else that you want to add to the conversation. So lots of love.
I love you.
Beash, kidian ake tir I kinata ashkere ate, diate niki ate shkea.